So everyone's heard of AliExpress or Wish and all those types of sites. The sites that are often in China and will export their goods to other countries. Well, recently one's been going around called TEMU, which has already been into multiple lawsuits, being accused of Bitcoin mining and virusing in the background. So of course I went and bought from them. I got curious, and so I've got a package that I ordered from TEMU full of nothing but tech stuff. Anything from accessories to internal parts. And today I just want to go through what I found, how much it was, and is it a good deal or a good idea. Let's start going through the bag. And first, I want to touch on the big box here. This one was about $20 AUD, and this is a keyboard. It's supposed to be, that is not the right color. It is supposed to be like purple and white, but you know what? Close enough. It is not wireless or anything. It's 60%. It is membrane, and it was very cheap. Giving it a look over, it doesn't look too bad. The shaping is interesting. The first four looks normal, but I haven't seen it stoop down again before. It's got the space bar, everything. It's running the Europe Enter. Definitely interesting, I'll give it that. Let's plug it in. Just gotta move the good mechanical keyboard I built, but let's give it a whirl. The cable, gotta plug it in. Okay, it's got RGB. And you know what? It doesn't look too bad. I don't hate the look of it. It's not the color I thought it would be, but I don't hate the look. Definitely membrane though. You can feel, yeah, you can feel it's membrane. Let's give it a quick sound test. Honestly, so far for 20 AUD, I'm actually kind of impressed. It's definitely membrane. It's not too bad. It's not too bad looking either. Definitely got some interesting decisions like the big enter, but I don't hate this for 20 AUD. It markets itself as a gaming keyboard. Let's run a game and try it. Okay, I got the keyboard running. I'm playing Portal 2 for a little bit, and honestly, I don't hate that. It's not by no means the greatest keyboard I've ever tried, but for the price, it's pretty good. Definitely membrane, but I actually kind of like this. This was a good deal. I like this. That being said though, as much as I actually don't mind this as a deal, it is only a $20 keyboard, and so I'm going to very rapidly switch that back to my $200 mechanical one for the test bench. Let's take a few more things out. There's a few things here that have a similar trend. That all of these separate things. Let's move the package for the time being. All of this stuff is for the internal of a computer. I've got 5 tubes of thermal paste for only $2 AUD. This CPU cooler, which is supposed to have RGB, is only $12 AUD approximately. I've got a fan here, 12cm, for only $7 AUD approximately. An SSD, only 128 gigs though, for about $20 AUD approximately. As well as a graphics card holder for about $5 AUD. Let's start with these two. It actually tells you the TDP on it. It only does 65 watt, which is actually pretty impressive. It claims it's got a 120mm fan on it, which considering this box is about 120 millimeters, might be possible. It also claims low noise. So let's open this up quickly. Okay. Oh, it feels very light. Okay, it's got the LEDs around the side. It's got 3-pin fan power. I have definitely seen this heatsink before. It's not an amazing heatsink, but I think they're right in the fact that the fan is about 120 millimeters. I'll give them that. That's pretty impressive. Even though this heatsink literally has a gap down there that you can still see that I can put my finger the whole way into that the fan is supposed to go. Because what they've essentially done is gotten a pre-existing heatsink, CPU heatsink, and just chucked a bigger fan on it. I mean, if it works and gets the job done, good on them. But it's interesting. Does it have anything else in here? It does. Oh, it's got one of these old things. The plastic brackets. It's got a few LGAs on the side. What those brackets are for are most old CPU coolers, like old ones, will have these AMD type clips on them. And all that does is just adapts it for an Intel socket. They were quite common back in the day. Still a little bit common now, but not nearly as much. But I want to give this CPU cooler a spin, and while we're at it, I'm going to test the thermal paste at the exact same time. So, it only claims 65 watts on it, which I'll give it that. And so I don't want to just chuck it on like an i9 14th gen. That would be unfair. And so here, I've got an AMD Ryzen 3 1200 quad core, which you might say, that's pretty weak. That's not very powerful. But it has a default TDP of exactly 65 watts. And so hypothetically, if this CPU cooler isn't lying, it should be able to cool this no trouble. I've currently got a Wraith Stealth cooler on it, which is a default stock cooler from AMD, which if anything has a smaller heatsink, so it shouldn't be too hard to beat. So I'm going to take that off, put the default AMD brackets back on, and chuck the CPU cooler on. The first thing we're going to do, of course, put on some thermal paste. It doesn't look too bad, and I think it should be fine. Now I've got a vertical test bench. I'm going to leave it as it is, and then hopefully the thermal paste just grips it and doesn't fall off. Okay, now just to play it safe, I've got plenty of thermal paste on there. I just have to peel the bottom off of this cooler. Never forget to do that. And then let's chuck it on. Got it mounted, plugged in. Let's turn it on. It'd help if I hit the power switch. Let's turn it on. Hey, it's got all the colors on at once, which is interesting choice, but okay. It seems like it's doing fine. The RGB isn't the prettiest, especially because instead of cycling through colors or anything like that, it's just got like 3 LEDs of one color, 3 LEDs of the next, 3 LEDs of the next, 3 LEDs. You get it. But she's not the prettiest. She'll get the job done. Let's do some testing on it. I did a test and put the CPU at absolute full throttle, 100%. and it stayed within like 60 degrees, which is more than adequate. TLDR, this CPU cooler is fine for a 65 watt CPU. So it does exactly as advertised. And so with that, we've tested the CPU core, and clearly it's been fine, as well as the thermal paste. I wouldn't recommend running these on anything higher end, but honestly, it did what it was advertised for. It only said 65 watts, and that's exactly what it did. The price wasn't as good on this one, but the quality was also higher than I thought it was going to be. And so as much as they reused a heatsink, I definitely have this heatsink already. The fan's meant to go in there, but they've stuck a bigger fan to it. You know what? I respect it. Good on them. And while we're on cooling, let's hammer out a really quick one. I got a fan here, claims to be RGB as well. Let's check if it's any good. The screws were loose in the bag. I kind of hate that. It uses exclusively Molex, but to its credit, it does have Molex pass-through. Feels fine. It actually feels pretty good. It's a brand I don't recognize, but all of these are. Let's plug it in. That I've got it plugged in. Honestly, it doesn't look half bad. It does the same thing as the CPU cooler, where it doesn't rotate through LEDs. It's got them all going at the same time, all the colors. But honestly, it's got a better match, and it's much better at fading it. It looks quite pretty. I quite like it. It's moving a half decent amount of air too. Look, it's by no means incredible, I'll admit, and I'm not massively impressed with it, but for the price, it's not bad at all. It'd be good for budget systems that still wanted some aesthetic. Next, let's talk about this. This is a solid state drive, an SSD, 128 gigs. Again, a brand I don't recognize. So it's for desktop PC, netbook, or gaming console, high-speed reading and writing. Okay, it's got all this here. I don't see anything about a DRAM cache, and the speeds are by no means incredible. It's claiming speeds somewhere between SATA 2 and 3, and so I do want to very quickly open it before I do anything, check for a DRAM cache, and let's go from there. Okay, I've got the torch on, got it here. I don't think we got a DRAM cache at all. That is the controller chip right there. SK Hynix, both of those are flash chips. We don't have a controller. We have a controller, it's right there. We don't have DRAM cache at all, which for the price, I'm not surprised, but it means it will limit our write and read speeds a fair bit. But let's give it a crack. What I'm going to go do is download Windows onto it, assuming it can do that, and then run a storage benchmark. Okay, this is interesting. So this is our first drive. This is the M.2 we've got in there. This one is the SSD down here. It's got 3 squares and won't let me download onto it, but I can format it and delete. There we go. It's now unallocated space, and now it's letting me put Windows on it. It's not going to be fast, but let's give it a crack. So this is the SSD running Windows, and this is the Crystal Disk Mark score, which is a common benchmarking tool for SSDs. Quite bluntly, this score is not good. It doesn't even get near the advertised speed, and you can literally watch it drop off. There's no DRAM cache, and it's just slow. And this one isn't even cheap or a good deal. I picked up a bunch of SSDs, Patriot Burst Elites. I bought them in bulk, and they're only $13, and they've got DRAM caches for the same amount of storage. It's not a good deal. It's not a good SSD. This one does not at all impress. If it's all you've got, it'll get the job done, but it's not going to do much more than that. And then, of course, this last one here, which is our GPU sag bracket. It is pretty small for a sag bracket. Oh, but it goes out a fair bit. Overall, it sure is a GPU sag bracket. I am now going to start moving on to some of this stuff. This is the first one I'm going to do, because this practically only cost me $1 AUD with rounding. On top of that, it's a 2-pack. It's literally just a brush that's small, that the website claims is for keyboard cleaning. Because this has been on the way, I've left my keyboard for a bit. My primary. This is the Aorus K1, and I want to just give this a crack. Okay, got a fair bit off already. First swipe. Zelda! Let's take a particularly dirty spot like here, because the number lock isn't used often. Okay, you know what? It's not too bad. The only problem I have with it is, sure, it was cheap, but it is literally just a set of brushes, and not even a particularly good one. I would prefer to just use a paintbrush, which is what I normally use. It was cheap, it gets the job done, but I can't say much more than that. I also got 2 different mouse pads. This one was only $3, and there's a bunch of Windows shortcuts on it. I thought it was a bit gimmicky, but could be funny. And while honestly it doesn't feel great, pretty good for a mouse pad, especially for $3. That's something I'm always surprised is so cheap. A lot of companies can make really cheap mouse pads, and look, they're not amazing, but a mouse pad doesn't have to be. For $3, that's not bad. And then for a little bit more, with $8, I've got an actual desk pad. So here we've got a proper desk pad. Again, doesn't feel too bad, not amazing though. But again, for like $10, it is not bad at all. That's a common theme with TEMU. Everything is exceptionally cheap, but everything kind of shows that. But with that moves us on to our final thing. This is a fun thing. It's a bag of something, and it sounds like Lego. What is it, you may be asking? This is one of the poorest stacking and keeping track of something I've ever seen. Because this is keycaps. Keeping keycaps like this is such an atrocious idea, and I hate it a lot. Because most good keycaps are sent on trays like these, with each little dot having a keycap, so that way you can essentially move it straight from there onto the keyboard. This is horrific. This is terrible. I don't like this. But they're ABS. There's 104 of them, so not the full like 108 or 10, 104, no supplementaries. But for $10, it gets the job done. Not too shabby. They feel fine. I'm not going to chuck them on a keyboard, only because I don't have any spare mechanical keyboards lying around. I've got my good ones, but I don't really want to be using them for testing because I actively use them. But they feel fine. Nothing extraordinary, nothing horrible. And so, is shopping for tech products like these on Temu a good idea? Sorta, kinda, a little bit. Overall, all of these things in front of me cost me just about 60 AUD dollars, which is very cheap. But almost all of them show that they are cheap. The SSD was the worst example, but none of them were majorly good. While they were all half decent, they all definitely showed their price. And so, let's say you just need some basic fans for a budget machine, or just a little bit of bulk thermal paste for, again, budget machines, or just some keycaps to fill out a keyboard, or just change the aesthetic. If you understand going in that this isn't the greatest stuff and it's just cheap stuff, honestly, shopping at Temu isn't so bad. It gets the job done, and while I have heard of scams on Temu, graphics cards are extremely prevalent for this. Overall, you're going to be fine. Just be careful with what you buy, understand that it's going to be cheap and it's not going to be the greatest. If you understand all that, sure, I see no reason not to buy at Temu. And overall, that was my deep dive into whether you should shop at Temu and is it a good idea. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I'm a small channel and help out a ton. Comment down below what you've bought off something like Wish or AliExpress or Temu, something like that. What have you bought? And did it turn out to be a scam? I really hope you enjoyed the video. I hope to see you in the next one. There will be some end cards on screen, so if you want to see more by me, make sure to click one of those. And I'll see you later. Bye-bye.